Modern collectors are collecting the hype. Vintage collectors are collecting the history. Those are two different worlds. I'm going to talk about the 5 biggest differences between modern and vintage. And trust me that collecting vintage or collecting modern is going to change everything about the way you collect, the way you buy, and the way you perceive your watch. Let's dig in, but first of all, let's look at some comments. I have a few really interesting ones this week, and it kind of touches what we're doing today. So starting off with one of the comments on what damages your watch the most. That's one of the videos that I did 10 days ago. And just to say here, I have Canadian Watch Monkey 3992 that actually commented and then is asking me thoughts on basing values on eBay sold items. I use eBay all the time. I sell a lot of watches through eBay. I sell over most probably 800-900 items a year on eBay. I'd say you have to look at an average. Obviously, you're always going to see that one-off that's undersold by a lot. And then you're going to see that one dealer that had that watch on there for like 5 years and ends up selling a watch for like double what it's really worth. You gotta have a bit of sense and you have to make, you know, a bit of an average and also base yourself on box, papers, condition. Obviously condition is the most important, especially if it's something newer. You're looking for a watch that's in really good condition. The value will change drastically between something that's really average towards something that's like new, especially into vintage. But anything else, I mean, if it's something that sells regularly, if, you know, you have like 50 of them sold and most of them are around $2,000-$2,500, you know, if there's one at $1,500 and one at $4,500, if you're expecting in that $20 to $2,500 range, that's what you're mostly gonna get. Unless you're really patient, you might find that one buyer that's maybe lost, that didn't really look at what they really sell for. But don't count on that. A lot of people want to negotiate, a lot of people want to get a good price, and that's how you figure out what to pay. And you know, you're gonna make your 10, 15, 20% margin as a dealer, as myself, selling on eBay. I also sell through the website. Obviously, if you come on my website, I will deduct, you know, I'll try to deduct a percentage. Obviously, eBay is really good overall. They do have a high percentage for the first $1,000, but then as you go up, you're gonna pay more like 7-8% in the $10,000 range. So you're not at that 16 to 18% when you're in the 1,000 range. It really depends. Like, I will do a better price if you come to me directly. If you go on eBay, obviously you have the eBay protection, you're fully protected. Not as much on the side of the sellers. It's always a bit of a hassle, but overall they're pretty good in general. And I'd say eBay is a good platform where you can do volume. I'm a volume seller, therefore that helps. Okay, if you want to do high retail, you're gonna sit on stuff, you're gonna have a very little inventory, and you're gonna turn maybe a few watches a week, or you know, less than that. I turn 2-3 watches a day, which is a lot different than someone starting into the hobby or starting a business. So again, eBay is good, but you have to be really a volume seller. You cannot make a living off 2 or 3 sales a month. You will never make your money out of it. On the video of most watches are losing value, Christoph Poznan 5226 is actually writing, hey, why old ones should gain in value? Forget it. And my answer, even though I already replied this morning, is pretty clear that vintage watches are very interesting from a historic point of view. Also, collecting modern watches is just as simple as you have money, you can buy anything you want. But that's gonna be part of the video throughout today. Vintage watches require a lot of patience. They require a lot of knowledge as well. So it comes with the patience of actually learning something, of taking the time of reading up and getting the knowledge of buying a, you know, a vintage watch. Versus a modern watch, you can go to any, maybe 95% of secondhand dealers, they're mostly gonna have newer or brand new Rolexes, APs, Pateks, whatnot. Most of them, they will just concentrate on the same, okay? And that kind of kills the idea of, hey, you know what, vintage is interesting. And why is it interesting? Because first of all, to get to the point of getting, like me, maybe 50, 100 watches a month and being able to buy and sell them, it takes a lot of time to create connections, to be known for those kind of watches. It's not just taking a brand new watch from an authorized dealer, trying to flip it for $1,000, $2,000, $5,000 more, depending on what it is or whatnot. It's not as interesting. It's just becoming a money type of thing, and that's what my response actually says. Because of the fundamental historic significance of those vintage pieces, that's why you're collecting them. It's hard. It's a long path. You cannot cut corners collecting vintage. Even if you have $1 million today to spend on certain watches, they're in big collections. You cannot just bully yourself into buying those watches. They're just privately owned by people that you need to know, but by dealers that might have them hidden in their safes. Okay, it's not as easy, and the more you know, the more you realize that you don't know much about watches. There's hidden gems out there that you need to look for. Also, my biggest thing, it has a lot to do with the video, so it's a bit of an introduction to the whole video. Old watches were designed and innovated with a purpose towards usability of every day for the user of that watch. Okay, what does that mean? It means that you had a watch, it was meant to last a certain amount of time. I'm not gonna say that all vintage watches were of great quality, okay, but if you're going towards ETA based watches, if you go towards manufactured watches with Lemania movements, with Valjoux movements, even deriving or going towards Patek that used Lemania movements for a really long time for their chronographs, that they were highly modified, but it's still the base of a Lemania. If you're looking at in-house movements from Omega, Universal Geneve, from all those vintage brands, you're looking at movements that are of quality. And then you put them into watches that are either divers or chronographs that were used in the military, or people who are diving like the Explorer 1655, or the Milgauss that was designed for engineers, the 1019. And if you're looking at all those watches all together, they all were intended with a sole purpose of being used on a daily basis and not being used as a fashion or jewelry purpose. If you're wearing a GMT, okay, if you're looking at the SAS and all the stories around, aviation and everything, it's really interesting. What does that do to the industry? Those submariners, those GMTs that used to be, yeah, a bit more flimsy, but they lasted 50, 60, 75 years so far. What happens to them today? They're still usable. All they need is a service, change the gaskets, change a crystal, and off you go. If they're not physically destroyed, those watches are good and will last another 50 to 75 years. No problem with the proper maintenance, and also without any problems. And today's watches, I've had a lot of them. Wear a watch like this Datejust for 20 years straight. No service, just bang it around for even 5 years. Even give it 3 years, it's not gonna look the same. It's gonna age terribly. You have to polish them. You have a lot of dealers out there that are doing a terrible job at polishing watches and just making it shiny for you to be impressed. That's what the whole market has become. So that kind of triggers me to see that people are not putting value to history, not putting value to what was done even 2 days ago or 5 years ago. Those same watches will come back on the market, and maybe your children or your grandchildren will want to possess one of those watches, will want to maintain the watch that you have been wearing for the next 20, 30 years. It's a bit ridiculous, okay? You have to be so disconnected from the reality of watchmaking and its historic parts to actually make such a comment. Not insulting you, I'm not, none of that, okay? But you have to be aware that you have to actually do your job of learning about watches. If you want to comment about them, do your research and then come back to me, and then we're gonna have a talk. And then you're gonna be like, oh yeah, respect, man. And first of all, I'm gonna have the respect for you of doing your research, because you actually did something about, prepping yourself to have a conversation. But if you come to me with just ridiculous comments, I'm gonna try to actually educate you guys and tell you, hey, you know what? History is part of watches, part of everything around us. You cannot have brand new clothing every 6 months. That's over consumerism. It is blatant disrespect towards your elderly, towards everything around you, including, whatever might it be, the nature, animals around you, and yourself, okay? Have that respect of doing your research. Do at least that. Read upon what you're about to comment instead of just having stupid comments that will just trigger me and people that really know what they're talking about, okay? We're way past that today. We have access to all the information of the world, all concentrated in, a little box in our hands. First thing is all about knowledge, okay? Why you need this? This is not only for videos or TikToks or whatever. It's a powerful tool if you know how to use it, and I'm using it every day to do my research. If I don't know anything about something that I'm about to buy or something that I'm about to sell or whatnot, it happens. We'll still learn every day. This is a powerful tool if you know how to use it towards that. I strongly suggest you do before just making such comments, because I do have a lot of fun commenting. I've had multiple comments like this one in the past year. And I'd say that triggers me. Like, this is a level maybe 7, because you actually disregard everything that we've been so far as a society, as humanity in general. Value is not in the monetary value. It has a lot to do with how you perceive each object, and the more you know, the more you realize how rare they are, how hard it is to actually get those watches. But let's get into the video and let's discuss about vintage versus modern pieces. We talked about historical attraction, so that's the main point. A lot of those vintage watches have innovated in terms of how deep you could dive with them, how precise they were for the time, how usable they were, or how legible they were for the time, for a certain purpose. Okay, now it's just reinventing the same wheel, using what was done before to actually go towards modern. What's interesting about modern is that you do have technology that improved what was done before. Is it actually better? Certain cases yes, in certain cases no. In the case of no, I have a lot of modern Rolexes going through my hands, and I'm going to talk mostly about Rolexes today because it's, the big crown and everything that surrounds it, including two doors. In general, you're gonna see watches of a vintage made models, whatever. We're gonna go with the 1500 or 1600 reference, our date or just from Rolex. I've seen some of them worn for 30-40 years so far and not have real big issues. Obviously they need a service, they need everything, to be ready. But I've seen some of them not being serviced for 40-50 years and still tick very strong. Whereas I've seen very, very modern pieces, I'd say 5 or 10 years old, that have rotor issues. And that's one of the things that Rolex actually did. If you're wearing your Rolex on a daily basis, the rotor and the axle around the rotor, okay, so you have the rotor here that turns, you have basically, an axle on the rotor, and that axle will actually get to a lot of wear really fast, much faster than the vintage ones. So that's a big no for me. This is a planned obsolescence from Rolex themselves, where when you have a watch and you're holding it like this, not with the bracelet to hit, but you're just tapping it like this, and when you hear the rotor actually tapping on the back of the case back, it's because the axle is very worn and it wobbles, so it does have problems. Rolex did that for you to understand that, hey, you need to do a service. It's planned, it's the way they do it, and I've seen a lot more of those than on the vintage ones. Even though vintage, it's, after 50-75 years, it's kind of normal. It's not normal to me to see a better watch have that kind of problem after 5, 6, 7 years of daily wear. Second of all, when you're buying a lot of the modern pieces, you're looking at the jewelry factor, you're looking at the show factor, and that is very impressive for a lot of people. How much is your watch? How much is it valued? How many diamonds does it have, or whatnot, if you're blinging your watch, or if it's a factory Rolex, okay? It's interesting, but obviously it comes down only to money. You're basically, you can buy almost anything if you have the amount of money that goes with what you're looking to buy. If we're comparing what we're seeing, okay, like visually, okay, when we're going into vintage, obviously watches have wear, they have scratches, they have, you know, they've had maybe multiple lives in the past, from patina to little scratches to maybe a watchmaker that has, you know, scratched the dial slightly. We see that all the time. Is it possible to find only pristine watches? I'd say no. You have to be a collector or a dealer that's like on the hunt specifically for those watches, but you're not doing volume. You cannot have perfect watches all the time, and that's the most hard part of vintage. When we're talking about modern collectors, you know, the looks are very important. I see a lot of people coming to me and they have a little scuff on the bezel of their Cartier, or you know, their Rolex has a little scuff, and they're like, hey, can you polish it? I'm like, yeah, I'll do it by hand. I'm not gonna do it with a machine, because if we do it with a machine, we're gonna tear down in the metal and we're gonna destroy the watch, okay? You don't want to remove too much metal. So what I see a lot happening right now with modern pieces is that a lot of dealers are doing retail ready polishing, so they're just prepping the watch for you to be able to buy it. What that says is that you will basically remove metal after removing metal after removing metal. I don't know what's going to happen in the next 20, 30 years to those watches, but getting them retail ready multiple times, even by Rolex, who polishes watches all the time, or dealers who just want you to buy that flashy little thing or your next watch, is not the way to go. And that's kind of killing it for me, because I'm a bit of a purist. I like watches as much as possible that haven't been touched in the past. It's sad, but that's the reality. So again, we're going towards the jewelry part versus something that we like as much as possible honest and very, very original, if not as original as possible, to be with all its original parts, except the crystal, except the crown. Maybe we can always find the vintage crowns for the watches we resell. The next point that's very important when you're comparing modern and vintage is availability and how rare those watches are. If someone calls me today and asks me, hey Chris, can I get a Batman? I'm like, yeah, let me make a few phone calls. Most probably I can find you a Batman within the next 2-3 days. Can you find me a vintage Guild GMT from 1963 with pointed crown guard, underline and this and that, and it's in pristine condition? Look up on the net. Maybe you're gonna find one, you know, through tens of websites, hundreds of websites, but I mean really pristine, not something that has been touched up and this and that, or recut or whatever. Find me one with box and papers mint. It's nearly impossible, okay? That's why those watches have an extreme value. When we're looking at modern pieces, they're not rare, they're just available, okay? They're available, you just need to put the price. If we're always going to be between 5 and 10% maximum from the lower end to the top end of the market. Obviously some dealers out there are screwing you over. That's another story for another time. They're not honest, they're overselling the watches tremendously. But in general, you're gonna see watches, if you know the right people, you're gonna be into that 5, 6, 8, 10% range from the top to the bottom of the market. And that's also killing it, because people think, hey, those watches are rare. I'm like, no, they're not. I can give you as many as you want. You just have to put the money down, and that's what it comes to, okay? Availability is there. It's only a matter of price. The community and the market behavior is my next point, and that kind of kills it for me, because the community of vintage watches is very, I'd say, more private. People are more, let's say, also educated about watches. They will read a lot. They're looking at auction houses. They're looking at everything that's going in the market. If we're looking at an auction from Christie's, Sotheby's, Phillips, we're gonna see, hey, this has gone up, this is going down. You kind of see where the market is trending, but there's no market, analysis as on the modern pieces. And that's what kills it for me in this market, where people tell me, hey, the market is down, the market is up, this and that. Who cares? It's not like you want a watch, you're buying a watch, you're not buying an asset. You're gonna wear it. If you're really wearing it, you might scratch it or drop it on the ground, and your asset is gone. You're gonna damage it, you're gonna lose thousands of dollars. That's where you're headed. If you're damaging a watch, it's something that you're basically putting on your wrist, and you might crisscross path with someone on the streets. It happened to me where I basically, by accident, I damaged the brand new watch, and I had it on the wrist for the past like half an hour. And it happens. It's not something that you have to expect to be perfect. Okay, it's something that you have to wear. And that's the problem with modern pieces right now, is that people are treating them as assets. They're not even wearing them. A lot of people that come to me to sell me their modern pieces they're 2, 3, 5, 8 years old, and most of them are unworn or worn a few times. Everyone's like, I worn it once or twice or 3 times. I'm like, who really keeps count? You gotta wear the watch. You bought it for wearing. It belongs to your wrist. It doesn't belong to your bank account. It's not tied up together. And that's what kills me when I see this. Okay, because watches are meant to be worn. You got to be careful. You don't want to kill it. I just find that, again, like, I'm going to that, but modern pieces age very poorly versus the vintage pieces. They don't have the same attraction. They're not perfect. You kind of can spot all the little details, all the little scuffs, swirls, everything. It just shows on your watch. Especially when you're talking Rolex, it's very, very, very polished. Okay, so that's kind of the killer point for me, where it's almost, you're wearing jewelry. You have to be careful. It's just not me. I enjoy wearing my watches. I'm wearing here a super cool watch. It's a 1680, 1970, 71, if I remember. It does have boxing papers. It's unpolished. It comes with the original bezel. The only thing that I replaced on it was the crystal. It does have the patent pending bracelet, which was a transition between the 7206 older bracelet and the 9315, which became basically, that secured clasp right here. Those are quite rare. Those bracelets, I've had a lot of them. They're always dating from 1969, 1970, around those years. So they were made maybe for a year and a half or 2 years. Really rare bracelets. It comes with a watch. The watch is really pristine for the time, and I'm wearing it every day. Right now I'm revamping the whole store, and I've been wearing it for the past 3 days. People who've seen me move furniture around were shocked to see, a $30,000-$40,000 watch on my wrist, and say, hey Chris, are you really doing this? I'm like, yeah, it's meant to be worn. I'm not afraid of scratching it, because I'm careful. I know what I'm doing. I know where the watch sits on my wrist. I'm just, but I have the tendency of sometimes dinging it on a piece of furniture or something. I'm glad I have wood furniture, so the furniture is actually getting damaged and not the watch. But yeah, you have to wear the watch for what it is and enjoy it. That's the purpose of those two watches. My last point comes down again to the patience. Okay, I know a lot of you are impatient of getting a watch, of getting your watch serviced, of sourcing the parts to restore a watch. We cannot just do that with vintage. Okay, it's not like, unless you have millions and millions of parts in stock, which, even if you have them, most of the time you never have the right one. It's also mentality point, where it's always on your mind, hey, I have to finish that watch. I have to find that one part that's missing for it. But that mentality is also making you enjoy your watch and your collection even more. It becomes very fulfilling to actually restore a watch and bring it back to life and say, hey, you know what, I'm enjoying it, and maybe down the road someone else will enjoy it as well. That's what's fun about vintage when we're doing it. For modern pieces, obviously you have a lot of companies right now, including Rolex, that gives automatically 5 years of warranty, so you have no problem there. I've seen a lot of people locally tell me, hey, should I bring my watch for a warranty checkup? Like in my last like 6 months of warranty, I'm like, you can do it, but if your watch is working perfectly, I wouldn't let someone else just touch it for the sake of touching it. Just do it when it's necessary. I find it's really interesting that companies are actually giving more warranties, especially the big ones. I have a lot of respect towards Rolex because they actually prove how much they trust their product and trust you guys as well to wear them. So it does give a lot of confidence to the customer when they purchase a high-end watch and are able to actually service it free of charge at, at the AD or at any service center of Rolex. To end the video, guys, I'm really enjoying sharing my ideas and my perspective about what I'm doing on a daily basis. Why have I lost a lot of respect for modern collectors is because there's no real true modern collector out there that I've met so far that keeps everything they buy, that really enjoys watches, that talks about modern and vintage at the same time and knows their stuff like in and out. It's very hard for me to have a lot of respect when a lot of people come to me and they flip their watches every now and then, and it's always coming down to that dollar sign. It kind of kills it, not only for me, but for a lot of people who really want to talk watches. Not only you guys, but YouTubers in general are talking value, value, value. How is your watch doing, Who cares? Did you buy it to invest? Which I think there's much better investments out there. Or have you bought yourself a piece of luxury, or have you treated yourself to actually wear a watch for a very long time? And the people who are actually doing this, I have all the respect in the world for you. But everyone else that's just like know-it-all and that makes stupid comments on my channel, I don't have any respect for you because it's just coming out of nowhere and your knowledge is basically to the ground and you have to build it up from nothing, okay? You can't just say stuff that you have no statements or basis or foundation on, okay? It's more than that, and for me it's more than just watches, it's more than just history, it's more than just knowledge. It's everything all together that draws me into doing what I'm doing every day. It's fun, I'm meeting nice people, I do enjoy what I'm doing, but I want you guys as well to enjoy this, not for the money. Forget about the money, forget about everything else. What's important is that you enjoy yourself. Even if you wear a $75 Seiko, even though you have a Casio, if you know watches, you know watches. And I'd say, first of all, if you have the choice of or the chance to actually buy something, go and buy a few books. There are a lot of magazines out there that are coming up with all the novelties of the year. They also sometimes talk about vintage. You can also look at Hodinkee. They're doing an amazing job on promoting either vintage or modern. They have a lot of respect for what they were doing in the past. They were kind of lost during the pandemic. Everyone wanted to invest into a money-making machine, which was, again, a big bust for Crown and Caliber, Hodinkee. Even Chrono 24, they bought, I think, Zeit Auctions or something in Germany. Huge companies, tens of employees that were fired after hitting a wall. All of that because people were subjugated and focused on making money, and this is not what this business is about. And I think that everyone, including those big companies that thought they knew better, they've hit the wall, and the reality has caught on with what this market really is. People who like watches will always like watches and love them and buy them for what they are, and not really care about the monetary value or the investment they made 5 years ago or 3 months ago. It's not how it works. We don't know where the market is going. So please, guys, tell me what you think. Hate me, love me, whatever, I don't care. I'm just sharing with you my own ideas about this industry. Thank you, have a great week. Subscribe if you like the video, and see you next week.